my life I wanted to fly like a bird.
Hi, I'm Ed.
I'm Chris.
Welcome to the Bill and Ted Commentary.
So the original title was Bill and Ted's Time Van.
Oh, that's right.
And our original draft has that. And do you remember
Why we called it
we
that?
changed it to Excellent Adventure?
Oh, well, we called it Bill and Ted's Time Van because initially Bill and Ted drove around in a van that was driven by their friend Rufus, who was a 27-year-old high school sophomore who had a van that just for no explained reason went through time.
Right, and he had a dog.
He had a dog.
named Dog
Right.
Rufus.
Yeah, his dog was called Dog Rufus, and
Right.
we changed it because when it was set up at Warner Brothers. Oh no!
No. We changed it before we went out with it. It was Excellent Adventure when we went out with
that's
it. So
right.
you and I decided
That's right.
to change it to Excellent Adventure. I think we just thought it was a better title. I think we must have just one day just said, what about Excellent Adventure? That's a better title.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it got changed from a van to a phone booth because when it was... No, this was after Warner Brothers. I guess people were worried that it was going to be too much like Back to the Future, which was about to come out at a certain point.
Yeah, which was like 85.
Yeah.
So they were really concerned, and nobody was aware
of Doctor Who, apparently.
We certainly were not. I'd never even heard of it, so that shows how much I knew.
So this is the one part of the movie that we did not write. This,
Yeah, I presume.
I think George wrote this.
This is Carlin,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. So
This was added because...
this was added
yeah.
later. This is
Mini golf scores are way down.
It was added because I think they either screened it or for themselves or for an audience, and people felt like they needed more context for it or something.
right.
So George wrote this part, and
Ran into a few problems.
yeah, I guess they needed. People were like, "What is going on?" Or so I don't even know.
Failed to keep these two on the correct path. Basis of
Yeah.
our society will be in danger.
Yeah. So this is where we
Makes sense.
began, I think, right? Isn't this wasn't this page?
Yeah, this was the beginning of the original script.
Or did we have him in 2700 first before this? I think we might have, but then these guys.
Well, yeah.
And of course, our original Bill and Ted were kind of not Alex and Keanu. Not super cool.
They were not super cool, good
guys
looking.
like this.
Yeah, they were like 14-year-old. We called them Lodies back then, like those guys that would hang around in the...
kind of Heshery looking guys.
Yeah,
with the long hair and the waffle stomper boots and the
lowrider jeans, boxers coming out. But it's funny because they never actually were stoners. What is this smoke? Oh, from the
their amp.
Yeah, from the amp.
Blue or something. No, they were never stoners. We had one thing where their history teacher made them knock erasers together.
Oh, right.
And they got excited because they got a little buzz off the chalk dust. That was about as far as it ever went.
But like with everything with them, they were just pretending to get buzzed, I think.
Yeah, right. Because I don't think you could get buzzed on chalk dust.
Oh, this is the videos talk. This used to be a T-shirt. Remember, it was them. The original idea. They were riding to school in a bus, and they were showing pictures of T-shirts. They said they needed triumphant T-shirts, and then it became about a video.
We don't really even know how to play.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is sort of like this is like Bill and Ted logic, I think. Which makes no sense, but kind of makes sense to them.
Wow, it's funny. I have not seen this film since it came out, and it is really interesting to watch. We had a lot more initially of introduction to these guys. They were riding on the bus, and then they got out, and then all the kids in school, remember they were saying they were super friendly to everyone in their school, and everyone in their school hated them, and they didn't care. They were like totally positive about it the whole time.
Well, especially the popular group, who we see later, very scornful of them, and they actually asked those two girls,
Oh, that's right.
those two cheerleaders, they asked them out
That's right. They asked them to
the
prom
or the dance or something.
And Mr. Ryan is the teacher, who is a nod to our friend Ryan Rowe, who was in the original improv sketch where Bill and Ted were invented. That was Chris and I and Ryan Rowe and Mark Sandrowski and Mark Jaffe, friends of ours. we used to do improv at this little theater in Hollywood. We spent $20 one night a week, and we didn't have an audience. We never wanted an audience. We just were doing it to work out. And one day, like, the suggestion was two guys who don't know anything about history, studying history.
My distinguished colleague.
And we had...
And it ended up being you and me. And
Ryan as Bob. There was
Ryan as Bob, but I think he came in later. I think it started off with you and me.
Yes, that's
I think
right.
My
That's right, he
memory
entered.
is that he entered, and it was you and me, and I basically said, "How's it going, Bill?" And you said, "How's it going, Ted?" Or vice versa.
It was vice versa.
Whichever it was.
Yeah.
And we just started, and kind of those voices were there.
Yeah. And Bob, then Bob came in, he was their friend. And then after improv, you and I went, where did we go that night? We went somewhere to a coffee shop, and we kept doing...
We went to Ships,
Ships.
in Westwood.
Yeah.
And we just so enjoyed... I love that. I've always really, really thoroughly enjoyed that joke. That the only thing you've learned is Caesar is a salad dressing, dude. Ed, do you remember the joke? There was a green goddess joke.
Oh, that's
I
right.
think.
It was the Green Goddess or something like that.
Right. They don't even know about Caesar, so they say green goddess instead.
And there was, watching Keanu and Alex, do you remember the first day, Chris, when we arrived? We had never met Alex and Keanu. We'd only seen audition tapes.
Right.
And
we were in Phoenix.
we were in Phoenix, and we were in line at McDonald's. And we were like, what were we saying? We were
Well, we saw them.
Yeah,
They
we
came
saw
in
those
too.
guys, right? We didn't know. We saw these two guys in front of us in line at McDonald's, and we're like, okay, no, those guys would be great, Bill and Ted. We had no idea that was Alex and Keanu actually in line in front of us. That was really fun.
Which, we've told that story many times. It actually reflects very badly on us.
It does.
Because we had watched the tapes of both Alex and Keanu. So somehow there's this lack of intelligence that we never put together. Like, oh, it's those. I guess we just couldn't figure that out.
Is that Alex and Keanu there on screen?
We're in danger of flunking.
No, I think it is. I'm still not sure, actually. I believe it is.
Sure, Missy. I mean, Mom. Stepmom's cute. Shut up, Ted. Remember when she was a senior and we were freshmen? Shut up, Ted.
That was one of those things we got onto pretty fast.
Yeah, that was one of the...
Bill's stepmom and Ted thinking she's... Well, both of them thinking she's cute, basically. And then her becoming Ted's stepmom in the second movie.
Remember, we at one point, Ted's mom was in the house, and she never came out of the room. Is she still... Do we refer to her in the movie still, or is...
I don't think so. I think one would assume that like he's a widower or something. Yeah, she just you just heard her voice, Ted, and then we loved that dialogue. It was like, dude, your mom, your mom's so fat she can't even come out of the room. She's got a glandular problem, dude.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she's got fat glands. Shut up, Bill.
He's anxious to meet you, Ted.
Yeah, I think that's not like that's probably not how you and I would have imagined them costumed. That was more Steve, and he wanted them like bright and peppy and happy. We would have done them more
Like T-shirts and heavy
Yeah.
metal shirts and... But Alex and Keanu have a whole different energy, and it's, of course, like probably a better energy than we probably ever would have.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely is. I mean, it ends up being kind of evidence for like bringing in a different, like the director's point of view.
Yeah. So this part of it, the whole future overlay, amazingly, that was never part of the initial concept. Our very first draft of the movie was just they had to pass their history test, and if they flunked it, they'd be separated. And then at the very, very end, I actually remember where we were. We were again in Ships, ironically. I remember sitting across. Ships was
the only place we went.
It was a coffee shop in L.A. It was a 24-hour coffee shop. There was one in Westwood, and there was one on La Cienega and Olympic. And we were at the one on La Cienega and Olympic, and it was late at night, and we had basically, I don't know whether we'd finished I think we'd finished the handwritten draft, and we just said, hey, what if it wasn't just that they'd be separated, but what if the entire world was at stake if they didn't pass their test?
Right.
And so we added this whole thing, and of course nobody, we couldn't get people to be in it. But so it was Clarence Clemens, and I remember when Clarence showed up, I was and I still am, but I was such a Springsteen fan, and we had seen the E Street Band so many different times, and when Clarence showed up on set, I was just knocked me. But this scene was really fun to write.
I gotta say that is one of my personal favorite jokes about George Washington. Had wooden teeth, chased Moby Dick, and then Bill knows that's Captain Ahab, dude. Which just gets at their weird pockets of knowledge.
Yeah,
That they know. I mean, their vocabulary is really quite good, and they know strange things.
When this movie came out, it got so viciously trashed for glorifying ignorance. We felt that. I actually felt that was pretty unfair because, they are ignorant. I guess they are ignorant, but it doesn't glorify it. One of the things I love.
They're super excited. I mean, they like get really excited about learning all the stuff they learn, and they're not certainly dumb guys at all.
Because they come up with some pretty amazing ideas. But the thing that I always loved about them was that they don't dislike anyone.
No, they really don't. Oh, this is I've always liked this, that Bill's dad sends him out of the room so that he can have sex with Missy in Bill's room. That's so awful.
It really is pretty horrible.
Now your dad's going for it in your room. Shut up, Ted.
Jesus.
It's just terrible. Poor Bill.
Now your dad's going for it. Your own room. Shut up, Ted. Your stepmom is cute, though. Oh, Ted. Remember when I asked you?
I was thinking, right from the very first time that we did these guys that night at Ships, there was something about that energy. It just always felt really good to be them.
Yes. Very open, very, very optimistic, very anything is possible. Initially, this was Bill and Ted. They were asking people if they would buy them a beer. And then we had to take it out. They said we can't have Bill and Ted asking for a beer because they're minors. This was also 7-Eleven initially, but 7-Eleven was not interested in participating in our movie.
So, but you have to be kind of relaxed to do the Bill and Ted voice. You kind of have to just like.
Yeah,
it's
just sort of
they're
get back.
very.
Yeah.
They're very relaxed with reality in a way that, well, I'm certainly not, and I don't know that you are. They're like our weird alter egos in some sense.
This was, I think, when we wrote this scene, when we were outlining it, and when we wrote this scene,
Yeah.
I think we knew what this whole movie was going to be.
Yeah, especially when the
guys arrive.
other versions of them show up.
Yeah.
Then we were like, oh, wow, that's really funny.
I remember where we were when we were.
We went to Tahoe?
We were up at Tahoe. We went to Tahoe to outline this. We outlined it in 3 days. Like pretty solid work, like
Yeah.
5-6 hours, probably each
Yeah,
day.
that's summer of 1984. So you're like 2 years out of. I mean, summer of '84, and we both graduated '82.
Yeah.
So it's just like we're like not that far out of college,
Yeah.
actually.
This was the moment where it was like,
You guys are going to go back in time. Yeah. You are going to have the most excellent adventure through history. Who are you guys? We're you, dude. No way. No way. Yes way, Ted. Look, we know how you feel.
Keanu's great there.
We didn't believe it either when we were you, and we us said what we us are saying right now. Okay, wait. If you guys are really us, what number are we thinking of?
this is, of course,
69!
a joke that I never really liked.
Yeah, the 69 of it you don't like, but the fact that they're both, what number are we thinking of, I
Right.
think is
That
actually
part I
kind of
like.
the funny part of it.
But what it was originally was, how many fingers am I about to hold up? If you're really me, how many fingers am I about to hold up? 4.
Three.
And then They
Right.
hold up 4
then
and
he
are
basically
somehow
just, like,
surprised.
pulls out 3 fingers.
Yeah. Or whatever it was. He pulls out the same amount and then is surprised that his other him guessed it. And that's what proves it to them. I always liked that better. And I don't know. I think I don't know why it got changed. I always felt like it was a little crude. That was all. I never really liked that joke. And then it turns out like June 9th, 6/9 is actually National Bill and Ted Day because it's like,
Oh, is that right?
yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. Someone declared it. And
Somebody must have figured out that the movie takes place on June 9th?
No, 69.
Right. But that it actually, the events of it take place on June. What other
No.
reason could there be?
Because of 69. 6/9.
Oh,
No,
I see.
as bodacious as what just happened.
There was
We told ourselves to listen to this guy. What if we were lying?
What if we're lying?
Why would we lie to ourselves?
they're so gullible and yet
It's what?
I just like that they somehow go with this, you know?
Well, Bill makes it good. I mean, it's what if we're lying? Bill's response, why would we lie to ourselves? This is a reasonable response.
Brace yourselves, amigos.
So we were outlined it up at Lake Tahoe, and where did we write it? Did we write it there?
Well, we wrote it in the Norms
in
on Pico,
On Pico.
I think.
Another
over
coffee shop.
4 nights.
4 nights. Wow.
Kind of sitting there in a booth, going back late at night, pretty much. Probably starting at 9 p.m., I don't know. And driving, and then writing until 3 a.m. or something. And we'd just go back, like when I'd write, on legal pads, and then my arm would get tired, and I'd give it to you. And so it just goes back and forth in terms of handwriting, that original draft. We wrote it fast because we had it pretty well worked out by the time, that week in Lake Tahoe. We kind of had it all worked out at your parents' cabin up there.
The initial concept I remember too, when we first, because we wrote it as a little skit first. We remember we put together that
part of like a skit movie.
We wanted to do something like Kentucky Fried Movie or something, and we wanted to do a series of 6 or 8 minute skits, and Bill and Ted were one of them. I remember you were in grad school at the time.
Yeah.
Down at UC San Diego, and I remember us on the phone. I remember lying on my bed, which was on my floor, and we were talking about Bill and Ted, and we were like, hey, what if they were responsible for everything bad that ever happened? And then we started to go through a list of, what if they sunk the Titanic? What if they got Lincoln assassinated? What if...
Right.
And Napoleon in the movie was initially Hitler, remember?
Yeah,
and we were like, oh, wait, we can't be traveling around with a lovable
I think in our
Hitler.
first draft,
Yeah.
maybe it's Hitler, and there's something, it's a much more risky joke. It was funny in a different way, but I think you and I pretty quickly realized, we can't have Adolf Hitler, going bowling and getting an ice cream sundae.
Although, now you probably could. I don't know.
Now you probably could, but it doesn't fit the tone of the movie quite.
Right.
Because it is so sort of sweet-natured in a way.
At any time?
Gentlemen, you can do anything you want, as long as you remember this. No
And-
matter what happens,
And
you must get to
this
every point. Got it? All right,
this idea with the little dangling Napoleon
give you the number
in the
of any
background,
place you wanna go.
that was one of the key concepts about when we were creating this was those weird little things in the background, like the throwing the Nerf football. I remember, to me, that was one of the key jokes was that they just give a Nerf football to Socrates and Billy the Kid, and Socrates and Billy the Kid throw it around in the background. And on screen, it doesn't land like the way it landed in my head, meaning it's not one of the big sort of moments that anyone remembers about Bill and Ted, but to me, that was like one of the big keys into it. And
Yeah, that was a big one. I mean, we had like a few sort of touchstone ideas, and another one was we wanted them ideally to be every time they walked into a scene, they were talking,
That's right. That's right.
and every time they walked, the scene ended, they were still talking. Like they're always, it's a nonstop conversation between these two guys.
That's right. And I remember saying once, if Bill and Ted were just put in an empty room for eternity, they wouldn't stop talking and they wouldn't have any problem with it.
Yeah,
Like
not
they
at
would
all.
just be totally entertained
They'd
by
be
each
fine.
other.
Endlessly entertained.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, we got one historical figure here.
God, remember how when we first set this up at Warner Brothers, how we did a draft because where they insisted that we differentiate Bill and Ted. They wanted us to make one a scientist and one one a geeky scientist and one a cool guy or something like that.
Yeah.
And we tried it and we tried it and we tried it and we just couldn't.
I don't know if we did try it, Ed.
Okay, let me rephrase that. We
pretended
told them
to
we
try
tried it.
and pretended to try it and pretended to try it. We didn't. Because we knew, like, that's not the joke. The joke is they're like, we used to say they're like it's one brain divided in two heads.
Yeah, two halves of the same brain.
Yeah, they think all the same things. They're
Exactly.
always thinking the same. That's the joke.
Right. And that was
And
why.
so the idea one's a scientist and one's kind of like a rocker, like, we weren't going to do that. So all we did was just basically describe them that way.
That's right. I remember the last minute we said, let's just put a paragraph in on page 2 that says, Ted is the heart and Bill is the head, or something like that. I mean, we described them physically differently and we described them emotionally differently, and that was it.
That did it.
That did it.
That worked. Of course, the weird thing is, on some level, Ted kind of is the heart and Bill kind of is the head. Although we said even in our description, though, if you get down to it, neither one is much of either.
That's right. Forgot about that. That's right.
But they're not exactly the same.
No, and they've, of course, as Alex and Keanu have completely embodied these characters, and, they're also growing, as we have been conceiving of Bill and Ted now. Who knows if anyone listens to this, if there is a third Bill and Ted movie, but if they end up making this third Bill and Ted movie, which is Bill and Ted as middle-aged men, I'd say are they different now, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've really
say they
kind of
are,
become quite
actually.
different.
Yeah. Because, well, I mean, Alex and Keanu are different kinds of guys, and these roles, I mean, they belong to these two guys.
Yeah.
They're joint creations at this point.
I can't even imagine Bill and Ted, to be honest, as we initially played them, or conceived of
No,
them.
I don't think it would have. I don't think it would have worked.
No.
It certainly wouldn't have worked this well. And also, I mean, that they were going to be cast in opposite roles. It was going to be Bill and at least I think.
Yeah,
it was
that's right.
Bill
Ted
was
was-
going to be Ted, and,
Yeah.
and Keanu was. Or Alex was going to be Ted, and Keanu was going to be Bill, and I don't think that would have worked as well either. Actually,
No, I think I don't know who flipped it. I have no idea. But initially, when we said, let's make them responsible for everything bad, then we actually came up with, I think, what was one of the sort of cornerstone ideas, which was they treat everyone the same. They lump
Right.
Sigmund Freud and Abraham Lincoln together by their beard, but not by their ideas, not by who they
Right.
are historically.
Steve Herrick did a lot of really, really great stuff. Great stuff. That.
I liked one of the things I liked most about what he did with this movie, and I liked a lot of what he did with it, was he did it very simply.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it was not adorned. It wasn't trying too hard. It was like this, a really just clean, simple shot. We had very little money, and he made use of that in a really great way. It had a great heart, which I think Steve really. I mean, I think we always wanted it to have a great heart. It always had a great heart. As characters.
Yeah, it needed that, but he really brought that. I mean, when I think back on the production of it, it was a really light, happy set, and we all really liked each other, enjoyed hanging out with each other, and played basketball together on Sundays, and went to the movies together.
2 beers, please. Whoa, he didn't even card us, dude.
He didn't even card us.
That's one of my favorite jokes. We got to
Yes.
remember this place. Little
Yeah.
weird throwaways like that. Keanu was an incredibly good basketball player, I remember.
He was really good, and I often ended up guarding him because
You were
I'm
tall.
sort of taller, and he just couldn't guard him. He's a good athlete, that guy. He was more of a hockey player, I think, but he was and Steve Herrick was an amazing shooter. Do you remember that? I remember I'd play him one-on-one, and I should have beat him because I'm taller than him. He'd kill me.
Hey, you're 9'3"?
No, well, I used to be. I'm old now, so I'm
Like
now I'm
8'11"?
8'11"
Yeah.
or something. I'm quite tall.
So we came, I think, how did we end up with the historical figures that we ended up with?
Yeah,
It's
how do
probably
you
the
never
only
play the
people we
kid?
could think of.
versus Jesse James or something. I maybe because we like Sounds Good, Mr. the Kid. I don't know.
Well, I remember thinking Socrates and Billy the Kid would be good together. Initially, we came up with what figures would just kind of juxtaposed be interesting.
We like this joke too. Ted, you got to have a poker face like me.
Whoa.
Whoa, 3 aces! What the hell's going on here, Billy?
Yeah, no, you're right. We just wanted to come up with kind of ridiculous juxtapositions, kind of the most ludicrous combination that we can. And Socrates and Billy the Kid is, they don't fit together. That's for sure. There was we had in one draft a scene. It was a more elaborate thing where like there was a gunfight, and Bill and Ted don't have guns.
Yes.
So they're throwing bullets. Do you
That's
remember
right.
that?
They were throwing bullets. Why did we cut that? We got notes to cut it for some reason.
I think so. Yeah.
That's right. They had
we-
bullets and they threw them. And then there was one.
and it worked. They
Right.
hit some guy in the forehead, and it kind of tipped him off a ledge or something.
How would you gentlemen like 3 passes to Waterloos, home of excellent water slides?
And there's a water park in San Dimas called Raging Waters. I don't know if it's still there. And they also wouldn't let us use their name, so we made up water loops.
That
That's
was
the-
extremely good comic timing, I think, that Steve showed there, where Bill's head goes through the wall,
Yeah.
and then a half second later, Ted's head comes through. Of course, I think that was another thing that we always liked about these guys. Dude, these two guys really love each other, but it's like they're laughing at each other. You totally got thrown through a wall, dude. So did you, and they're excited about that. But they do enjoy seeing each other get thrown through a wall, also.
Yes.
Kid, where are we going? The golden age of civilization. Where? Ancient Greece. Dude.
It was at the end when we were rewriting the script that we came up with the 4, whatever it was, ancient, medieval, modern, whatever it was.
Yeah, just sort of a kind of a template to hold it all.
Yeah. We had more. We had a lot more historical figures, actually, especially when it was the van.
Charlie
And
Magny,
Charlie Magny, that's right. George Washington.
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth.
This is why they call me the Sultan of SWAT.
That's right.
Yeah, Amelia Earhart, who they lost.
Does that still happen that they lose Amelia Earhart?
No, I don't think so.
They lost her in the Time Void.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. It was called the Time Void, not the Circuits of Time. I don't even know what we conceived of it as.
Socrates.
And in the original draft, they were just being driven around by Rufus in his van
Yeah.
with his dog, with dog Rufus,
Yes.
who would just sort of hang its head out the window, presumably named by Rufus, right? He named his dog Rufus.
The only true
And in that first draft, does Rufus not turn out to be some amazing figure? He's just a guy
He's just
with
their
a time van
Initially, he was just a guy, like a sophomore. He was a sophomore in high school who drove
who
around
just
in
happened
time.
to have this van that could drive through time.
Yeah.
Tes clepsidra, Hypu, Hemon, Hemerai.
As if Socrates would have ever told people
How's it
this.
going?
We filmed this part in Rome. We had about
Yeah,
because
we did.
Dino
It
De
was
Laurentiis had a
incredibly
studio.
Noisy. Do you remember that? Like super noisy.
Oh yeah, because there was
Major
traffic
streets
going
around.
all around there. That's right. So this is all dubbed because it was. You're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah, this was shot in Rome, and the castle was shot outside Rome, and yeah, there was probably 20% of the movie shot over there.
That's where we met George Carlin for the first time. I remember standing on the side
Met who?
That's where I met George. That's where we met George Carlin for the
In
first
Rome?
time. Yeah,
Really?
that's where he started the work, and couldn't have been a nicer guy. Like the nicest guy. And whenever I would bump into him somewhere, like just walking around L.A. afterwards, I bumped into him a couple times. Once in a supermarket. Just always really kind, friendly, asked questions. Really miss him.
It must have seemed funny to him. I mean, he's like one of the greatest comedians of all time. And I think a lot of, I don't know, some people anyway thought of him as Rufus.
That must have been hard for him. Don't feel bad for him for that.
But yeah, I mean, of course, we all grew. Anybody who liked comedy grew up loving that guy.
Okay, we have a giant mea culpa here about the princesses. I don't even know how to. I don't even know how to say this.
Begin?
Yeah, where to begin? I think
Not strong, not beautifully conceived characters, let's say,
yeah,
and well differentiated from each other. Hey,
No.
do you remember they were going to take? At one point, they took that guy with them.
Oh,
They
John the
took,
Surf. That's
yeah,
right.
John the Surf. He traveled with them, and he was kind of even a little bit of a character.
Right. It was all these great figures, and then a surf named John. That was that guy, who they just had no idea why he was a part of this adventure.
This is pretty. It's like, oh, it's the castle of King Henry. They're just okay. The level of historical ignorance here is kind of high, I would say. King Henry who? What? What are we talking about here? Oh, there's your Nerf.
There's
ball.
the Nerf ball
Your
thing.
Nerf football in the background. Yeah, yeah.
Those must be the princesses you told yourself.
And in fact, those were when we were outlining it. Those were some of the big jokes for us. By the way, this is the other thing about the princesses. They both fall in love at the same time. With two
Instantly, they both fall in love with a different one.
Right.
And there's no sort of like, oh, well, we both like the same one. No,
There's
instantly, and from about 200 yards away.
We have another joke here that I think made us laugh at the time, and now I feel in hindsight was, the fag joke. That's not really.
Yeah. Right, I know what you mean. Given that they're like 15-year-old boys who are very uncomfortable with the fact that they actually really love each other, it makes sense from
Right.
within the character and that they both say it. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's not a joke we would make now.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I remember when we were writing it, finding this quite funny. Them walking around in their suits of armor and fighting and doing the Darth Vader voice. And do they make a Tin Man joke here? Because I remember thinking that was. I feel like the Tin Dude in The Wizard of Oz.
Yes. The idea that they're kind of like dogs, like puppies, that they have a mission, a task, but they just get
can't stick to
distracted
it.
immediately by things, and then
Yeah, this really does not make sense to be doing this at this point. It's not the wisest expenditure of time.
So this emerged, this idea of them separating, because we got so much pressure from the powers that be, I don't even remember who at this point, were to separate them. Like, it's a movie, they have to get separated, and we fought it and we fought it. Like, they wanted them separated for much of the movie. So we ended up compromising and making this scene happen, which was,
Wait, this wasn't in our original?
I think,
Really?
I actually don't
I
remember
thought
that.
it was. But I don't know.
I remember
It's
this guy.
pretty
This
funny.
guy.
It's
I remember
pretty
him. The
implausible.
Italian.
Ted-
This guy was Italian. I just remember that.
The guy was Italian.
This guy. Well, yeah. This was all Italy.
We were in Italy.
Yeah. But I remember him like asking some question like, "What is this movie we're doing?" You know,
that guy? Really?
Yeah, in very bad English. Like, what is this? Is this a comedy?
Is it physically possible that one could fall downstairs in a suit of armor and
And
fly
then
out of the suit?
fly out of the suit? Yeah.
I don't think so. And then the guard stupidly stabs an empty suit and thinks he's killed a guy? Oh, well.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's a sweet moment, and it does allow us to get a glimpse of what you know, what they actually mean to each other. Because
Yeah.
Ted would react the same way, obviously.
Ted,
It's funny because when I
don't be dead, dude.
initially saw the film, I think it was not the film that I had. And, you know, initially I think of everything I've ever worked on, I'm the proudest of this movie. You know, I think the sweetness, the innocence, the strangeness, the joy of watching Alex and Keanu,
Yeah.
and the way it's kind of sat in culture, to me, which I never would have expected. So all that, it's like, as I look back on it, I'm just, you know, I have incredible fondness for it. And also just the sort of joy of the spirit of how we wrote it, and purely without any sense of whether we could even sell it, you know, not the least of which get it made. But
Yeah,
But
they
I-
were very kind of joyful characters, and really wonderful to be. And I always just enjoyed, like, all business concerns aside, just getting in that Bill and Ted mindset and being Bill and Ted has always been really enjoyable.
yeah,
And we'll get to the second movie, but when we wrote the second movie, we wrote it in a really different state of mind because a lot had changed. And we kind of got right back into it and really enjoyed writing them again.
yeah.
And the third one, 25 years later, they're very sweet, these guys, and they're very pure, and they're very, there's no, like, snark and no, they're like really sweet guys and genuine.
But-
We got a kick out of this when we were writing this poem, this ridiculous poem.
right.
We liked this a lot. I remember laughing about this
Beautiful babes from England.
For whom we have traveled.
because it's so bad.
Time.
They rhyme time with time.
You know the promise of San Dimas? We will have a most triumphant time. Way to go.
And that it's a joint proposal.
Of course.
But I was
And
saying,
of course, we loved when we stumbled into put them in the Iron Maiden, excellent. I remember we definitely noticed that one.
right.
Married to two horrible old men today.
No way!
Oh, the ugly old men, right? There was a banquet scene that they snuck into, and they tried to.
Right. That's right. Ugly old men who are probably the age we are now. Maybe not as ugly as we are now.
Well, that's you and me playing those two guys behind the camera.
Earl of Preston,
I'm the Duke of Ted.
Duke of Ted.
You know, Steve got a lot of this right because a lot of it's played
Straight.
straight. Yeah. There's not a lot of mugging that goes on. There's a little here and there.
So this actually,
Bogus.
yeah, this actually I think is Bill and Ted's bizarre superpower, which is, I mean, they do really get phased by this. I guess they are phased. But there's also this, I don't even know what the guilelessness, I guess,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
just,
they're. I mean, this is going to sound horrible. And we didn't intend this, but like that idea of like sort of holy fools.
yes.
That's
right.
They're kind of like that. They just sort of stumble through life, but things work out for them because they're very pure-hearted. And they had quite a speech here, I think, or not a speech, but a dialogue where they
That's
talked about dying.
Time is taking
Remember,
the most serious turn.
yeah, and they went off on a tangent. Remember, they started talking, and then just they started. What did they go on the tangent about?
I don't remember, but it annoyed the king. I
Right.
remember that. Like, stop talking, cut
Right.
their heads off.
Somehow Socrates and Billy the Kid saved them.
What? We play pretty fast and loose here. We really don't worry about a lot of logic here. Yeah, because if you try and logically figure that out, yeah, good luck.
Well, so what I was going to say was that initially, when first screened, that we had wanted a kind of the energy and pace and kind of craziness of like a Python film, you know,
very much so.
much more, sort of more
Oh,
reckless.
we were thinking Holy Grail.
Yeah, Holy Grail, which is why when Roy Ford Smith, who
Yeah, we were happy. Very
was the production designer, he did Holy Grail, and we were, again, kind of gaga when we met him.
But yeah, you're right. That was very much what we were thinking of, the tone of it, the feel of it, and so I think early on we didn't fully recognize
Yeah.
that it was a different take on it, a different
Yeah.
way of doing it.
How did that happen? How did they get like a regular operator there?
Well, you see,
That was you.
yeah, that was my idea. Yeah, it just seemed really, I don't know, it just felt naturalistic and true. And that guy in the script, I don't know why, he was called the Mountain of Flesh.
Oh my
Remember
God.
that? I don't know why I remember that, but he was. The Mountain of Flesh swings his thing at them. Oh, this was another scene when we came upon it, when we just were sort of writing it. And we didn't do this, like, we didn't structure it and then fill it in with characters. It was like totally character based. And then we just sort of started them on their journey and discovered scenes along the way. And when we discovered this one, we were like, oh, wow, that's pretty great too. And I don't know how we came up with "Be Excellent to Each," "Be Excellent to Each Other" and "Party On," dudes. I really don't. It's pretty good, I think.
I remember writing that with you, actually.
Really?
It was what would they say? It came very quickly, and it just came right out. What would they say? They'd say this, and they'd say this. We never struggled over that. And that's Fee Waybill on the right, who from the Tubes, Clarence Clemens in the center, and Martha Davis from the Motels on the left. They were sitting on chairs with poles coming out of the other side of that wall.
We weren't, totally. I like this music cue. It's actually a pretty good music cue.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, what we had in mind, I don't think could have been done on the budget. We had something more like a giant dome. You know, like a huge
That's
dome,
right.
and they just, they couldn't quite do that. So, but now I see why this works.
Is that Kelly? Was Kelly Carlin in it? Was
I
that
have no
Kelly
idea.
there? George's daughter Kelly?
I don't know.
I don't know.
So at this point, I think in our mind, they don't know. They have no idea what's happening.
Say something. What should I say? Make something up. Be excellent to each other.
Of course, the circularity of this is they've built their entire civilization on those words. They know they're going to say it. So it's kind of the satisfaction of hearing them say exactly what they know they're going to say. But I mean, that's the whole premise of the movie. Help them pass a history test. They passed 700 years ago.
Ridiculous, but it's a history report, not a future report.
Yeah, the music is. I like this.
Later.
It's a good cue.
Yeah.
Let's get back and do our report.
Do you remember when we were writing it? I think when we were in Norms, and
Yeah.
were we in Norms? Or where was it when we were doing the voices? And a woman, we were sitting at the. Excuse me. We were sitting at the counter, and a woman like leaned over. That was before we started writing it. Leaned over to us and was like, "Real friends would not talk to each other that way." We were just doing Bill and Ted trashing each other I think we were just doing it for fun. We used to do that. Oh, this scene has some of the best acting, I think, in the movie.
this is
These
very
two,
good acting. Very,
that's
very
Chris
good
and me.
acting.
Greatest ice cream spectacle known to man.
Wow, that is really good. That's a good line reading. Look how
That
young we
very
look.
handsome young man there.
Yeah, he's a stunner.
He's a stunner.
drop-dead
Why didn't
stunner,
he
that guy.
become the giant movie star he promises he would be there?
Yeah, weird.
Napoleon.
When we were writing it, the idea of sending Napoleon on this ridiculous little double date with some 11-year-old kids, to Farrell's ice cream parlor, and yeah, I remember we thought that was pretty.
And Farrell's another one that wouldn't let us use their name.
Yeah.
Nobody let us use their actual names in this movie.
Hey,
Oh, look
it's those
at-
guys again.
It's those every time they come on screen, I can't take my eyes off them.
No, there's a lot of charisma.
There's a ton of charisma.
It took us a long time to get this right, so it actually took a week to shoot that scene.
It was a week just to get this part, and then a week to get the first part, and then another week to get
that
us
was
to come
half
out
of
of our
the
trailers.
Half
Yeah,
of the schedule was doing that scene because we just
we had a
we
lot
got
of
very
demands,
nervous.
and we got nervous. And when you do the kind of work we do, it takes a kind of intensity.
Yeah. I remember losing 15 pounds in that week. I was so excited.
And I
to do
gained
that.
15 to do it.
You gained 15?
Well, on purpose for the role.
Yeah. It's like a Jake LaMotta sort of thing for you.
Was this Rome too?
Yeah. I don't know. And then like our assortment of historical figures, how we came up with who we came up with. This guy does a good Freud, actually, I think. And for the most part, these historical figures are played pretty.
Extra credit, dude.
They're played pretty straight, or the actors do it pretty
Yeah.
simply, which I think is really
How's it
good.
going, fruit, dude?
I think in general, where it heads, it's funny. One of the more memorable scenes, at least that I hear from other people, is memorable. Is like one of my least favorites, which is the whole big mall thing, which we'll get to.
Yeah, not our favorite scene.
We had initially, this is the part that when we initially conceived of it, and it was a van, we called it the cavalcade because they were bombing through time, just picking up
Right.
people and shoving them in the van. And what was it with, like, there was a bunch of food and...
Yeah, well, there's the pudding cups, which
Right.
show up later in the history report, but they had snacks for everybody, and it sort of shows up as like the gum thing with the caveman.
Oh,
This
that's
is
right.
Rome,
They had
too.
pudding cups, and somebody who was licking the lid all the time in the pudding cup.
And
was
he
like-
cuts his tongue.
Someone cuts
Yeah.
their tongue.
I forget. Right, but somebody does that. Attila the Hun, maybe? Or Genghis Khan, I mean? I would assume this is Rome as well. Do you know what Sigmund Freud's last words are before he dies?
No.
They're great. His final words are, "This is absurd."
Life or the fact that he is dying?
Who knows? He's about to die, and his final words are, "This is absurd." I like that a lot. I think those are really, really good final words. I don't know. I don't know about this.
It's Jane Whelan, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
from the Go-Go's.
Uh-huh.
Welcome aboard, Miss Joan of Arc. My name is Ted, and this is Bill.
One of the other things I really don't like, which we get to later, was Joan of Arc in the mall teaching aerobics. I just never liked that, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah. Not great.
Want a Twinkie, Genghis Khan? Say please.
Well, there you go. There's the food thing we were talking about.
Right.
Do you want a Twinkie, Genghis Khan? I think that's probably a line that's fits what we were doing.
Why do I remember it as ho-ho? Seriously, I'm not kidding. I don't know why.
Ho-hos?
Yeah,
Really?
I have no idea why I remember it that way.
Well, you lived on ho-hos.
Yeah,
at that
that's all I
time.
ate.
That's pretty much all. That's why you got. That's how you gained those 15 pounds so quickly. I mean, we also never ever deal with the reality that a lot of these people have horrible fates in store for them when they're returned home.
Yeah,
Like a lot of them,
yeah. They return
I mean-
a lot of people that basically get assassinated or
just die very soon, or have get burned, or this is like, don't even get into that. But that would be a very different movie if we did that. Abraham Lincoln, we are very saddened to tell you that you're going to be shot and killed when we return you.
But here you go. Good luck.
But sorry, dude.
I can't believe that we had him say shit in this scene. It's like so not necessary.
Yeah. Did we at one point have them go to the movies? Oh, I always thought it was funny. That
He cheats, yeah.
Really obviously. Because when we wrote this, it was the summer that Gremlins came out. And didn't we...
Well, they went to Gremlins and they loved the scene where the gremlin goes in the microwave. Yeah.
The gremlin gets microwaved. Yeah. But we used to have Bill and Ted talk about that stuff too. They loved stuff like that. Then Excalibur, they loved the scene where the crow plucks out the guy's eyes.
Wait, that's what they talked about when they were getting beheaded. Didn't they start?
Yeah, that's
they started talking about Excalibur when the crow...
And how their heads were going to probably be put on spikes and crows were going to plug out their eyes just like an Excalibur, which they loved. And the king got mad and told him to be quiet. Yeah, you don't really need that.
Sounds like completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it's funny that he's a really bad. It's funny that he's a terrible bowler and a really bad sport.
Yeah.
Excusez-moi, monsieur. Down there, not so fast, buddy. D, you ain't paid yet. Pay? Pay. I don't want to see you around here anymore. Beat it.
That's good. I like that. I like this guy yelling at Napoleon. I don't want to see you around here anymore. Beat it. Aw. Poor Napoleon. Now what's he going to do? Right, so that was Hitler.
Yeah.
Like our first rep, that's Hitler. Wearing his little Nazi suit, walking around. I don't know how we thought we were going to get away with that. Him walking around with a swastika and stuff. And this was like, we had like a whole scene. This is another character. Like Og.
Og the caveman.
Og the caveman, who like accompanied them. And,
oh, hey, pudding cups.
The pudding cups are still in here. Oh, I'd forgotten that.
Thank you.
It might have been Lincoln who cut his tongue on the lid, actually.
I like that is the device that somehow allows them to travel through time. that series of basically wire hangers. And then we had to. I remember us getting a note. You know, everyone has to work together. They have to learn to all work together to fix the phone booth. And we
this is what we came up with.
Yeah. Well, it's because
we chew gum.
Another idea we really fought against for a long time and came up with this as a compromise. This is them working together. That's what this whole thing... Oh, that's kind of all right. Some pudding cups
and gum.
There's stuff like that I actually really like because it's so illogical that it just says, don't even try to be logical. It's like, stop even thinking about it. That's right, Og was a character that they took with them.
Yeah, there was a little speech where they gave to him, it was like, soon you will evolve into, you are cavemen. Soon you will evolve into Neanderthals. Then will come Greece, then Rome.
Right.
That, whatever. Their little picture of history. Oh, right. So then we come back to the other side of this.
And again, I think this, like you said when we saw this in the first half of the scene, this is when I think we went, oh, there might be something special to this movie. Like, we actually...
Yeah. And it seemed really interesting to us. Like, it's just like, this is a very odd adventure they're on. And some of the places that they stop are, they're just kind of weird. They lead to weird scenes.
You'll see.
Gentlemen, is everything all right?
Yeah. Except how come the number we dialed for San Dimas brought us here instead of to tomorrow, Rufus?
Because in San Dimas it is tomorrow, William. You have to dial one number higher.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not crazy about little sound effects like that.
Hurry.
Click, clack, click.
Could live without that.
What do you mean, Rufus? We got 10 hours left.
Stuff like that feels very insecure,
Ted, you forgot to wind
right.
your watch again. After you reminded yourself not to.
No matter how many times Ted is reminded, he will never remember. I think even in our third movie, the same thing, right? Doesn't he
Yeah.
ever watch it? He just can't get right. It's just not.
It's just not him.
He can just keep reminding himself.
Conversation made more sense this time. Go nuts, dude. Hey, you're too tall, man. That's the way I'm built.
I didn't know. I had never heard that little ADR stuff.
What?
Just the way I'm
Which
built.
one?
Now, how did this scene emerge? Because didn't it we added this scene?
Yeah, this was another one. You know,
Another
what you were
note.
talking about that note. They have to work together. They have to work together.
There has to be stakes, right? There has to be an obstacle.
That's what this ended up being. You got it. All the historical figures help them do errands.
That's right.
Meet some of our friends. Yeah, this is,
I think the
I
note.
like this list of names. This list of names is wonderfully
and
lame.
Maxine of Arc, Missy, Herman the Kid,
I think it's Bob King is gone.
So Crazy
That's such a-
Johnson,
So great.
Dennis Food, and
Abraham Lincoln
Abraham Lincoln.
just gives up. He can't come up with anything.
There's sodas in the fridge.
That's right. This scene, we were told we had to have obstacle. It had to be harder for them to get back to their final.
To get to the history report.
Yeah.
So they end up, and doing it all sped up like this, I think was a good choice by Steve.
Right. And the note
It
there was
gets you
the
through
scene
it.
seemed too long. It's like, let's speed it up.
Yeah. Right. And so it worked a lot better that way. I mean, I don't think this is the kind of thing that either one of us likes particularly. It feels pretty general.
Right.
It is general, actually. It's kind of like The Mall in a
Yeah.
way. Is there a little mini version of the same thing?
I kind of like the ideas and the concept better. I liked the idea of them all. In fact, that was a big.
Yeah, well, we wrote. I mean, that's our idea to put
Yeah.
them in a mall. I
They
mean,
get
we wrote
lost
that.
in the
That's
mall.
in our first draft.
Yeah.
Take them to the mall, and have them walk around because we. I mean, it is kind of fish out of water stuff, right?
Well, that was the whole original concept. Juxtapose the most, like the greatest people who ever lived with the most mundane things of the current world.
Yeah. While on the other hand, put these two kind of ridiculous characters in these important moments in history and have them not really grasp what's happening at all.
Right.
So sort of double fish out of water in a way.
All the final report stuff was reshot. I'm sure Scott and Alex are going to talk about it on their commentary. That's one of the producers, Michael Murphy. And then, but this was a reshoot all because remember it was all in a classroom and it just felt too small.
It was too small, I guess.
Yeah.
Didn't have enough scope to it. That's pretty good that they just leave them with a bunch of Slurpees, I think. Leaving the historical figures sitting in the food court is not bad.
Yes, of course. The original line was Hitler's a dick. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we liked this. This weird. This is Bill and Ted Magical Thinking. It's not magical thinking. It's intuitive thinking.
We were one of the greatest generals in history. And we were stranded in San Dimas for one day. Where would we go? Waterloo!
And there it is. It worked.
Right. They're very intuitive, these guys.
This music,
11 children, please.
that sort of Van Halen influenced. I remember Steve Herrick saying, and I remember feeling like Steve was the right director for this when he said to us, he started reading the script, he got about 5 pages in, and then he stopped, went back and put on Van Halen and kept reading. And it was the spirit of Panama. It was Panama and Jump that we said this movie wants to have that feel. Those two Van Halen songs.
Right. So we actually went to Raging Waters after we'd written the script. I think, and it was really fun. We went with Brian Presswich and Dave Warner, I think. And But we'd never been there before. We were just writing Raging Waters, like not having been there.
We hadn't?
No.
You know what?
Never
One of the
heard it.
things that I know this will sound really bizarre. One of the things I'm most proud of in my entire professional life is that San Dimas, California, at their 50-year anniversary, they put a sign up as you enter San Dimas that says San Dimas 50 years an excellent adventure.
That is good.
That makes me really happy.
I've had a number of people over the years ask me, "Are you from San Dimas? Is Ed from San Dimas?" And no, neither one of us is from San Dimas.
In the original concept, this I like, pushing a kid out of the way.
He's a dick.
Yeah. In the original concept, when you and I were first doing Bill and Ted, just screwing around on our own doing it, we were writing letters back and forth between Bill and Ted, and one of them lived in San Dimas and the other lived in San Gabriel, and
Really?
which is another inland town. Yeah,
Oh, I
and
didn't remember that.
they had a brother named Dan, Ted's older brother Dan.
Ted's older brother Dan, who'd run away because Dad was kind of a tyrant,
Yes,
and wrote letters back to Ted, which were very politically opinionated and utterly ignorant.
and this was when I was 21, 22, and you were 22, 23.
Something like that.
Something
yeah,
like
this
that.
is 1983.
83,
doing
yeah.
all that stuff.
We were writing, just doing them as characters and writing back and forth, and just enjoying being in the Bill and Ted thing before we ever thought of turning.
Yeah,
it
I mean,
into
I've always thought that the reason we could write this so fast, and the reason, maybe one reason, that it kind of is still being watched and people are still enjoying it is, like, it was all about these two guys. Like, by the time we wrote this thing, we knew these guys so well. They were so alive and so incredibly specific to us that we kind of always knew what they would do and say.
right.
So that makes it. I've never written anything like that before, or since, where it just comes that fast. Like, well, it's almost like you just hear the voices. I think Beethoven was deaf by this point, so I'm not quite sure.
What he was listening to, he was just looking at the colors.
He's just admiring the colors. Yeah.
Well, I think when you look at the facts we used in this and actual history, you have to look back and think maybe history was wrong,
Yeah.
and maybe history got it wrong and we got it right. Is
Who
what
are
I'm-
you going to trust? History books or
Yes.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? Are they at Hot Dog on a Stick?
That's Freud is, and then this joke I never liked. I didn't like the hot dog, like.
Yeah, it's a little broad. A little broad.
Although we wrote this, we wrote him with a.
All seem to be suffering from a mild form of hysteria.
I didn't like the thing going down. That's the part I didn't.
No, it's not the right joke.
Way to go, egghead.
That I like. I don't think I like that.
I guess we're saying Socrates and Billy the Kid are kind of bonded. They're kind
Yeah.
of pals by now.
This to me is sort of where it just starts to.
It picks up.
That's fine. I was going to go the other way. I was going to say it just.
Oh, you're going to say it starts to deteriorate?
Yeah, because it's just getting. The energy picks up shortly, but it just gets like, okay, I don't know. It's like we took the most. I don't know, the easiest. I remember him.
That's
he was
not bad. The mannequin's head going through the baskets. not terrible.
I got a live one here.
I do remember
this is
thinking,
okay.
Yeah, when we were coming up.
You don't understand.
Oh, that's Jim.
Yeah, right. Ha ha ha. Come on, mister.
I remember being amused writing some of this stuff, though. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's, you know.
It's all right. It just doesn't. It's just not. It's not of the Bill and Ted DNA. This is one of my least favorite things in the entire movie. Is this right
Well,
here?
Bill and Ted
Just
aren't
not a
in
good
this
idea.
scene, right? And so, like, what
Right.
you and I think love is like the Bill and Ted thing, you know, like when Bill and Ted are talking and thinking and making sense of things, and these are just. I mean, really, these are movie jokes.
Right. They're like, yeah. And the other thing I don't like, I just don't like Beethoven rocking out. And I remember that was a note too of like, can you make the historical figures seem more modern? Because we're afraid that if Beethoven plays classical music, audiences won't like it or something. Or the kid, I don't remember, but I remember this was a note, and I don't like it.
Sigmund Freud has a kick me sign on his back, which I don't think we see, but somebody put it there earlier.
Yes. That we wrote.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, her doing aerobics is not a great joke, but we probably wrote it. We did write it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I don't like that joke we wrote. Yeah, I mean, there are certain jokes in here that, you and I didn't write, but we did write all this. I mean, that little shot there, it's a well-composed comedy shot. Steve, kind of knew what to do comedically a lot of times.
Mom, can't you go any faster?
Makes me smile. The
sunscreen,
yeah. So here comes something that I think I'm most proud of in what we did. So now the historical figures are caught in jail. It's not. This I remember. I like this part, but was the idea of how they get the historical figures out of jail, which I guess we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
That to me is another. When we stumbled on that, it was another door that opened into the bizarre psychology of Bill and Ted, and the bizarre frame of mind and worldview.
And their kind of amazing ability to play with time, because that's what they really have. These guys, they treat time very casually.
Yes.
They don't overthink it.
Yes.
It's just sort of this river that you can go into, and you can access here, and you can access there, and you can do that.
Oh, hold on. I got to interrupt you. This is the most quoted line from Bill and Ted. This is a line written by Chris Matheson.
I don't think it's the most quoted line.
I think it is. Well, maybe not the most quoted, but this.
I'm just sort of writing myself here.
San Dimas High School football roll!
Yeah, the idea that he just ran out of gas and all he can come up with is San Dimas High School football rules.
That was Ox. His name was that Ox? Yeah, that was Ox. It was Randolph,
Ox.
Biff,
the
and
other guy
Ox.
was Biff. Not very imaginatively named characters.
It was Buffy and Jody, Randolph,
Jody and Biff and Ox.
Yeah, were their high school nemesis. All of whom got cut out of the movie. They just felt we had set up too much and didn't need them. We probably didn't need them.
Yeah, probably.
But that was a big part of the original concept of Bill and Ted was the high school world in which they lived.
You pack your bags, Ted.
What?
You're going to military school, Ted.
But Dad,
No, I don't want to hear it, Ted.
Hal Landon plays this all very well too, because he's a real actor. He's a solid actor, and he plays it legit. Yeah. He's good, and he's very funny channeling Ted in the second movie when he's possessed.
Our historical figures are all locked up. My dad won't let them out.
Yeah, so here's the leap. Here's the crazy magical thinking leap, or their weird manipulation of time. Kind of crazy logic. I remember when we first came up with this, I was like, I don't know, man. Does this make sense?
I remember where we were. We were in Warner Brothers.
Right.
So one of the few good things from this movie that came out of that time at Warner Brothers, basically, we got this movie optioned. We wrote it. We had no idea anyone would like it. I remember you looking up across the table at Chip saying, we might even sell this.
I remember saying that driving back from Lake Tahoe. I remember reading it. You were driving your little Honda Civic, and we were driving back, and I remember flipping through the notes and looking over at you and going, Ed, I think maybe we could sell this. This is pretty funny.
So we got this thing optioned by Interscope. They set it up at Warner Brothers, and then we started this process of rewriting. But that was one of the few good ideas I think that we got during that development process, which I remember sitting across the desk. We had an office we shared, and we had two desks up against each other. And we had this idea. Like, what if they decide, like, after the test, they'll go back in time, plant the things.
And place things for
Yeah.
themselves.
We had a lot more. We initially had a lot more of this. We had a lot more of stuff that didn't go right. Like, I don't know if the ladder is still in here, but it's like, get a ladder. Oh, I forgot a ladder. Oh, then we don't need to remember a ladder. And like, it was like we really went into the crazy physics of it.
I think we also really went into Ted on tape, the recorded voice.
Oh, right.
Them talking to each other and like doing sort of like doing Dust in the Wind on tape and like enjoying the fact that they were being recorded and talking to each other. You know, one thing that like you were talking about the whole the beginnings of this thing, and it got optioned at Interscope, but before that we did have a stretch of about, it wasn't that long, but for the first several months we definitely bumped into people who were like, this is not going to happen. This is no good. I remember there was one agent in particular who was like, I beg you not to put this in the market. You will damage yourselves. Oh yeah, I like that they drew that.
They're so supportive of themselves. Duh. That I like.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, when we first wrote this, we gave it to my agents at the time. I had a writing agent, from, and gave it to them. They read it, and they wouldn't send it out. And I gave it to a couple other agents, because like my agents won't send this out. Would you guys represent it? And I remember giving it to an agent who read it, and he literally said to me, I was on the phone with him. He said, "Do you hear this sound?" And then you hear this slam, right? Do you hear this? That's the sound of me dropping to my knees, begging you not to send this out. I remember that very well. It just has that history of, some people getting it and some people just not getting it. And the people who not getting it...
Yeah, it was a hard road, actually.
Apparently there was a meeting at DEG, at De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, where half the people really liked it and half the people hated it. And apparently somebody threw the script across the room against the wall and said it's evil. I don't know what evil. Because of it.
Wow.
Oh, by the way, I found your keys.
Here, where are we? Get this off me! Here!
In conclusion, I think Abraham Lincoln would be most impressed with the world of San Dimas. I know I am.
Down your hall, to the left. Quiet.
And I'm sure I speak for Mr. Ward and Mrs. Rowe when I say that your reports were very entertaining and very informative for all of us. So it seems we may be one report short today, so we'll leave just a bit early. But once again, I want to thank you all for your very hard work.
Hello, San Dimas. Please welcome, for the final report of the afternoon, from all throughout history, some of the greatest people who have ever lived in their 1988 World Tour.
How's it going? I'm Billy the Kid.
So this is all reshot stuff. I'm sure Scott and Alex will talk about that.
Took place like in a classroom, really.
And I remember arguing vociferously for keeping it in a classroom because I thought it was better if it was small, and I was totally wrong about that, I remember. Not arguing with you, but like arguing with the production and stuff.
No, I
like
agree with you. I thought it was better in the classroom, but of course this works. I mean, at the end of the day, something either works or it doesn't, and this does work.
Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan.
So yeah, this was a reshot. They added these lights were new. These sort of concert lights that were used in rock shows.
We never really say who's running all the lights.
That's a good point.
Apparently, they magically
no.
caught that one too.
No, we did. I don't know if it's in the movie, but we remember like they came back in time and helped. Initially, Bill and Ted got other Bill and Teds.
Yeah, that's what it would be. I mean, if we were gonna, there really should be a cutaway of other Bills and Teds running the lights and giving them thumbs up. You know? Way to go,
yeah, after
dude.
the report. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's what we would. I mean, I'm sure that's what we were thinking.
After the report, they go back in time. They get other Bills and Teds to help them run the thing, and then we should have done that. I think we did it.
You know, it is like they have amazingly in 90 minutes learned quite a bit of history. They do know things now that they didn't know before.
That's why I actually reject the idea that. Oh, this is that Bill and Ted's parents don't get along. They're like, are you? I didn't. They're Bill and Ted's dads.
They both think that the other one's son is a bad influence on their son.
Yeah.
What are they doing up there?
Again, gigantic mea culpas here. Like, no wives. Like, the one wife they have is that they Missy.
You know, you'd have to look at this thing and go, you and I at 25, we were not very
not
oriented.
evolved.
Yeah, I mean, like it is very male centric.
Yeah, well, in so many ways, it was about like, you know, you and I had, we shared something in college that, you know, I think is completely unique to my life, which is how you and I made each other laugh.
Yeah,
I've never had just haven't had that experience. We remember we were in an anthropology class together, and we used to sit in the back of the class writing notes back and forth and cracking each other up.
Yeah.
We used to, and I think a lot of this spirit of Bill and Ted just comes out of that. I mean, like we were saying about Bill and Ted, they could be put in a room and just entertain each other. There was that time in our life where, you know, we were in our early 20s and we just got so much joy out of going to crazy, crazy comedic places with comedic characters, and I don't know. But
yeah,
yes,
we were like really super good playmates, you know. We were like a couple of 5-year-olds, you know, who like, you know, those two kids just really get a kick out of playing with each other, you know.
And it used to bug other people.
Run around and who knows what they're talking about, but you know, they don't play with the girls very much, but.
Yeah,
you know, the truth is, Ed, if we'd gotten into like deeper stuff that pertained to like mothers and stuff, the whole movie would have stalled out. I was not prepared to do that at all.
So let the people who are like watching this go who care to like say, let's see, there's Freud, there's these characters, like let them work all that out.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're hoping maybe to sort of redeem that aspect of the thing
in the third movie.
We'll see.
God, I hope there's that third movie. Hope that really happens.
Yeah. Well, they're like I don't know. Bill and Ted are not. Bill and Ted are very alive, I think, for you and me.
Yeah.
And therefore, Bill and Ted at 50 doesn't seem weird at all. I was like, well, of course. They exist. They live. They're, you know.
And now, for our last speaker, one of the greatest presidents.
And here is, I mean, again, for those who said this glorified ignorance, here it is, Bill and Ted having actually learned.
Learned some stuff, yeah.
It is a pretty good report. I mean, if you're doing a report about history, and for some reason by the way, for some reason, a history report that happens in front of the whole school. I actually never really liked this speech that much. I don't know.
You didn't like 4 minutes ago?
No, that I didn't mind.
I thought that was all right. I'm all right with it. I mean, we had to get out of this scene somehow, you know.
Yeah.
And he made sense as the last speaker.
Yeah, I think I'm wrong. I think this. I'm thinking about my memory of it. Maybe it's just the broadness at the end of it. I'm not sure.
You know, one thing that I sort of have noticed a couple of times watching it is there's a great physical simplicity to Alex and Keanu. They're very still a lot of the time. They don't waste a lot of, considering that they are kind of like Labrador puppies. I mean, that is what Bill and Ted are like. But they're very simple and they're very still at times, which is really good.
Yeah. They've been incredible partners.
Yeah, they have.
Through these movies, and especially and in particular the last decade that we've been conceiving and trying to, really do a third one that is worth doing.
Yeah, because, you and I mean, we write these guys, we feel these guys really deeply, and then we'll show stuff to Alex and Keanu, and they come back and they've got incredibly specific insights about the characters also. And sometimes they say things that you and I are like, oh, right.
Right, of course.
They're right. That's a better understanding of these characters that you and I made up and that are very specific to us. But they have quite a connection to these guys, I think. I don't know. I don't think was that our idea, holding up the lighters?
Not
why so many high school kids have lighters is another question.
And this is a reshoot, right?
This is a reshoot, but because originally they were like about to go to the prom, right? And Rufus showed up and talked to him there.
We shot a prom scene. Remember?
And he shows them their album, and he's like, "This is you guys."
Oh wow, that's right.
I mean, we met lots of great leaders.
I've never really like when characters learn lessons, comedic characters learn lessons. That's usually a really bad idea. It's just like it's okay. They're kind of toast as comedic characters. But
this was a note. It was another note. They have to learn something. What did they learn? How are they different?
Maybe you're right.
Yeah,
I think
they
that's
should learn
also
how to play. That seems all right to me.
That's an antiquated idea, but it's a very 80s movie, 80s, 90s movie idea, which is the characters learn something.
It's definitely a trope. Yeah, but trope.
Hello again.
Oh, the credit cards. We didn't write that joke.
No, definitely.
That was an ad lib, unfortunately.
Congratulations on passing your history report.
Yeah, but this comes from a different era of filmmaking where there's a lot less ad-libbing going on.
Yeah.
A lot less. I mean, there's literally, we can count them in the movie. There's like 5 or 10.
Right.
Now, there tend to be a lot more.
Yeah. I didn't like that joke.
No.
Yeah.
No.
All this stuff about improvising movies on the set, it's not improvising. It's just writing using other people's brains. Seriously, it's writing using other people's brains and writing kind of at the last minute. It's not like we're improvising a movie. You're
it's very weird, actually. It's like, people spend months or years even working stuff out, and then, at the last minute, you can do better than that. And there are a few people who can. That's.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. But you got to be really good at that to pull that one off.
I believe you were there. That future.
You got to be Adam McKay or something.
And the totally excellent music. They totally worshipped us there, Rufus.
I know. That's why I was sent to make sure you passed your history report. If you guys were separated, it would have been disaster.
He also plays it with great simplicity. Steve, he pretty much directed people towards simplicity.
Yeah.
Because he was a very straightforward guy.
Allowing meaningful contact with all forms of life, from extraterrestrial beings to common household pets. And it's excellent for dancing.
Did we write that?
No.
Why don't you have the ladies sign as well, would you please?
We weren't around a lot during the reshoots. I think you were gone, I was gone. I don't know.
I have a feeling this was like even shot in L.A.
I got a surprise for you.
I don't even remember this.
Yeah, this was shot months later. The guys even look
right.
a little bit different.
Yeah, they look older.
Mm-hmm. Well, the movie was filmed in like spring of '87, and it didn't come out until spring of '89. So it's like there's a pretty long time where it's sitting on the. I mean, it was going to go straight to video there for quite a long time. I remember we'd be talking to, other studio people that we were working with at the time, and they were just like, they felt sorry for us. They were like, "Oh, it's so sad. It didn't work.
Yeah.
What a drag. That was a very funny script. Well, it's too bad. It turned out to be such a failure. Maybe if you just dump music all over it, it'll be watchable."
Is that Steve Vai, or was that Steve Vai in the second movie? Like the guitar riff there?
I don't actually know.
Let's jam.
Ooh. Yeah, this
I
seems
know.
a little funky. It's got kind of a funky feel to it. Like everybody was a little rusty. Like they're not.
Yes, Ted, my friend. This has been a most excellent adventure.
Yeah.
It's like
This definitely is like.
they didn't have enough money to do enough takes or something.
They do get better.
Wow, look at that.
There it is.
Well, Chris, say some really profound, wise thing to sum all this up.
Well, the visual effects supervisor was Barry Nolan, and
The three most important people in the world were.
Yeah. I don't know. It was really a very joyful thing making this movie, and it was the first movie I'd ever had made. I think we called ourselves the Ugly Waiter and the Stupid Waiter, didn't we?
Yes.
Wasn't that us?
Yes.
Like we're about to pop up.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Those are
Stupid
those two
Waiter
names.
and
See how
Ugly
they
Waiter.
just
And
pop
I don't know
off
how
the
we came
screen.
up with who was stupid and who was ugly. I think we could have swapped them either way, but no, it was tremendously fun. I mean, that 2 months out in Phoenix and 2 weeks in Rome, I didn't really fully appreciate it at the time because it was the first movie I'd ever had made, but boy, it was really, really fun, and Steve created a great energy on the set, and I think the guys were great, obviously. I don't know, it was very, it was a lot of fun, and I don't know.
What
That's
I'm the
my
most
memory
proud
of it.
of, I
What's
think,
yours?
is just that the spirit of it somehow permeated it, and remember when it came out, how severely trashed it got by critics.
Yeah,
I mean, they just trashed
hated
it.
Hated it. Yeah.
And that was so painful, I remember. But it's lasted. It's lasted in a way where it sat in a different way culturally. And I just remember feeling so devastated, like get out of bed devastated when those reviews started to come in. And it was, I didn't understand. It was like somebody just excoriating trashing your own children, in a way.
Yeah.
And feeling like, I don't understand how it deserves this,
It was perceived
and it was a lot
to be
of
a
people.
glorification of stupidity.
Yes, I remember Vincent Canby saying, the quote was, meant to be funny, but merely swells the nasal passages.
That's not a good review.
No, that was not good.
That's not what you want.
And the guy from the LA Times, again, the sort of glorification of English. I actually think that they were actually they were wrong. They just were wrong about it. It's not like it's not Citizen Kane, but it's a sweet film, well-intentioned, sweet, with a lot of, I'm really proud of it, actually. Out of everything I've ever done, I think that it's the most meaningful.
It ends up
experience I've
not
had.
being that far from what we wrote. Is when you get down to it.
I know, that's what's funny.
At
At the time,
the tone is different because Steve saw it a different way, but it actually is fairly close to what we wrote. I remember we went to see it opening night in Westwood at that UA theater. And there was a good crowd there, and we went to see it with a few friends, and it did, people liked it. People
played
were
really well,
laughing,
yeah.
and I remember our friend Michael Singer at the end turning to us and saying, "The audience has spoken," and I thought, right on.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. I don't know. That's probably not the right note to end.
No, I kind of like that. I like that as a last note.